Hi, my name's Emma Patterson. I'm the principal solicitor at Patterson Law. This is a brief chat about the offence of dangerous driving. Dangerous driving is a horrible thing to be accused of, undoubtedly. It's a really serious allegation. In essence, what the police and the Crown Prosecution Service are suggesting is that the standard of your driving fell well below that of a careful, prudent, conscientious driver, and that it would have been obvious to a careful, prudent, conscientious driver that driving in that way would be dangerous or would pose a risk to other road users. So it's a very serious allegation and it carries very serious penalties. Most of the cases we see where people are charged with dangerous driving, it's allegations of a long period of bad driving, perhaps overtaking at speed, causing cars coming the opposite way to have to brake or take evasive action. It can be very bad losses of control, perhaps taking a bend way too fast in difficult weather conditions and losing control. Normally there's an accident involved, but it doesn't have to involve an accident. It's purely just about the standard of the driving. And that these allegations are so serious that if you're charged with this offence and if you're convicted, and I'll bring you to the Road Traffic Offenders Act, you can see the penalties. So there we've got it, Road Traffic Act Section 2, dangerous driving. If you're convicted, then disqualification, here are the columns on disqualification. Disqualification is obligatory and it's for a minimum mandatory period of 12 months, just like with drink driving related offences. So it's a minimum of 12 months, and the difference with dangerous driving is that under section 36 of the Road Traffic Offenders Act, it stipulates that if you're convicted of this offence, you must complete an extended retest before you can ever drive again. So there's section 2 of the Road Traffic Act, which is where the offence is laid out. It's a very basic description of the offence, and all the finer nuances of what dangerous driving is and what dangerous driving isn't are contained within case law. So over the years, the higher courts have set precedent where they've told us what it means, and the distinction between dangerous driving and driving without due care. That's one of the areas where we find this offence most frustrating, because we will often be dealing with several cases which are very serious but very similar. For example, in one week we had very similar accidents involving cyclists on roundabouts, and in one part of the country it had been charged as driving without due care, where the client was at risk of 3 to 9 points or a discretionary ban, and an almost identical incident in a different part of the country had been charged as dangerous driving, and the client was at risk of a minimum mandatory 12-month ban. Dangerous driving charges, as you can see under the Road Traffic Offenders Act here, can be dealt with on indictment, so whereas driving without due care can only be dealt with in the magistrates' court, a dangerous driving charge can be sent to the Crown Court because the magistrates may feel their sentencing powers are insufficient, which effectively means they're considering giving you more than 9 months in prison, which they couldn't do after allowing some credit for a guilty plea. So dangerous driving is hugely more serious than due care, but there can be a real disparity between the decisions in relation to charging. We've had lots of cases involving wheelies on motorbikes where some of them are charged as due care and or inconsiderate driving, and some of them are charged as dangerous driving, and we find it very hard to distinguish between the circumstances in the case in order to be able to understand why the police in one particular case have formed the conclusion that it was dangerous driving, but in a very similar allegation that it was simply due care. Obviously that's good for the clients who are charged with driving without due care or inconsiderate driving, but not very nice for the clients who are charged with dangerous driving. We had a chap once who'd come back from a foreign holiday and had been driving on the right side of the road for a while, came back early hours in the morning, wasn't concentrating, pulled out of a junction, went onto the right hand side of the road and had a head-on collision with a vehicle coming the opposite way, and the court in that particular case concluded that the standard of his driving did fall well below that of a reasonable, careful driver. So dangerous driving doesn't have to be malicious, it doesn't have to be nasty or intentional, it just has to be obvious that driving that way if you'd been concentrating, would have been it would have been obvious to other road users and other sensible, careful, cautious drivers that driving in that way would be dangerous or innately dangerous. If you want to have a chat about a dangerous driving allegation, obviously we'd need to talk through the specific circumstances with you. We have had considerable success at the police station stage with dealing with officers and persuading police officers to agree to charge with no more than due care, or perhaps allow the client to do a driver alertness course as an alternative to prosecution. And that's been when police officers have been using the phrase dangerous driving at the roadside. So sometimes it is possible to calm things down, get the officer to understand the significance, get the officer to accept that you perhaps realise that you didn't get it right, and to just basically calm things down a little bit so that hopefully you don't get charged with dangerous driving. And we do like to get involved in dangerous driving charges at the earliest possible stage, because our police station statistics suggest that we do a good job of influencing the decision making on the actual charge. So give us a call on 01626 359 800 if you want to have a chat about a similar allegation, and we'll be happy to talk through the circumstances and give you some initial advice on the best way forward. Thank you for listening.